Your inbox is somebody else's to-do list. Now, LinkedIn, productivity books and podcasts are awash with sentiments like this, trying to give us more autonomy over our inboxes, but it doesn't always help, especially if you're working in a high-stress, high-stakes job and juggling urgent information about patients with rota changes, purchase notifications and newsletters. You need more than a glib one-liner. You need a system that works. That's why this week I'm joined by Dr. Stephen Jin, a psychiatrist who got in touch with the show and shared a great article he'd written about how to approach managing your email in healthcare. I liked it so much that I invited him on the podcast as a guest so he can share it with you. In this episode, we go deep into why so many of us are wrestling with our inboxes, how we can get some control over what comes in and start devising our own system for keeping things organised, rather than following the latest advice on Instagram.
My name's Stephen Jin and I'm a consultant psychiatrist working in Westminster.
Great to have you on the podcast, Stephen. I want to just cut straight to the chase. Do we have a particular problem with email as senior healthcare professionals in the NHS?
I think the answer to that is yes. We're receiving an avalanche of messages every day, and what we're faced at is having jobs where we are trying to do the job and also just trying to be in a constant chatter about the jobs we're trying to do all the time. And I think it could be close to impossible for some people. So I've written an article which was published last year in Advances in Psychiatric Treatment, all about email. My motivation for writing that is the way people used to talk about email in one of my previous jobs was like this thing that they were subjected to, that they had no control over.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because, in our training sessions that we do, we say, what's stopping you giving your best at work right now? And often we get the answer of workload. And then when you delve deeper into that, it's often emails. And so when we try and classify what their workload is and if it's urgent and important or urgent, not important, et cetera, people just put emails in every single box. And what I noticed was that people are talking about emails as work, but emails are actually just the way that work comes to us, presumably. Or do you see emails as the work themselves?
It's everything, isn't it? It's emails like the glue that holds what we're doing together. So there's a very interesting book written about this called The World Without Email.
Love that book. It's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cal Newport, is it?
Cal Newport, yes. So Cal Newport has written a really interesting book about email called The World Without Email. Email has completely changed the way we work. And he describes us as having this sort of hive mind where we are both trying to do the work and also commenting about the work at the same time with this sort of avalanche of messages coming to us. And of course, it's developed organically. And so it's no one, I don't think, would design email the way it is at the moment. So it's become this sort of message inbox where everything comes in the same place. So the decision architecture of the thing, the way it's sort of all pointing, it doesn't work towards a particularly sort of sustainable or useful day often. That said, I think we just need to keep in mind, email is amazing. I'm not here to say that email is, the devil incarnate. Actually, email's amazing. I actually, one of the things I suppose I was trying to do with email is to rehabilitate it. Because the idea that we can send a message to someone on the other side of the world and they can read it whenever they like and get back to us immediately, that's extraordinary, isn't it? So it is great. But it's sort of taking over our lives. And I think, like you say, for some people, it's slightly killing them, or very much killing them, in fact.
I think it's that disempowered feeling that we get with email. And like you said at the beginning, control is a huge issue. And we know that control is one of the workplace causes for stress and for burnout. And people, like you said, say, I have no control over my email, which in a way is right. We don't necessarily have that much control over things that land in our inbox, unless we put rules on or filters, or we've got a particularly vicious spam filter. But in a way, then we lose control over what does get through and what doesn't get through. And I've lost messages because they've just gone into spam and I've not seen some really important messages.
Well, I'm going to challenge you a bit, one, if I can, Rachel. I think we do have a bit of control. Sure, we don't have control of what comes in, but we can train people about how to email us. And we can be the change we want to see in the world. So we can sort of use email sensibly. There are rules and filters that you can put in which bring things down. You can, this is what I talk about in the article. You can reduce a lot of the emails you're getting. Every time you sign up to something, people try and send you an enormous amount of emails about it. And all these things can be reduced.
Yeah, because we do have choice, don't we? A lot about the amount of notifications via email that we get. And there are some emails that we shouldn't even be looking at. We just delete if we know we don't want them.
Absolutely. I wonder whether the way we are with our emails just sort of mirrors the way we are with our jobs in general. So is it that if you struggle with your emails, are you struggling in general to say no? And do the two things work together? It seems unlikely to me that someone is finding the rest of their job quite straightforward and able to say no and knowing all about boundaries and listen to your episodes on it versus, and then emails are the only problem. I think probably the two things go together. And in a way, email could be a sort of a fairly low stakes way of trying to explore how to put boundaries in with stuff. So I get your emails, I'm on your list, but they all go into a Rachel Morris box. And I read them every so often.
So how do you set that up, Stephen? Because lots of us don't even know how to set that rule up that you can put emails into a box.
Okay, well, I suppose it depends what software package you're using, but most of us are using, to get very much into the detail here, most people are probably on nhs.net email, and I think the easiest way to do that is if you log in online on the browser, then whenever you receive an email, there'll be a little 3 dots at the top hand corner of the email. If you click on that, it'll say add rule from this message, and it allows you to add a rule. And if you set up a folder called, in my case, Rachel Morris, set up a folder and say, every time this message comes, put it in this folder, and you can decide whether to mark it as read or not. And then you can just look at that folder whenever you fancy it or not.
Does that work on Outlook as well? Is that an Outlook?
So that is, yes. Again, it's a little bit complicated because essentially you can use the desktop app or you can use the online one. The online one, I think, is a little bit easier. Okay,
great. So that's what we mean by an email rule. It's when you get an email from a particular person, it can go into a folder, or you could say just delete it straight away or put it into junk.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you have at the bottom of almost all emails, you'll have an unsubscribe link. So at the bottom of your emails is an unsubscribe link. So you can just simply, and I would suggest that people are fairly vicious about how many emails they actually let themselves into getting, and think about whether it's actually something that's worth their time. Because yes, it is hard not to read emails that you get. But if you do want to read them, but you don't want to read them straight away, then you can set up a folder. So you could just do in Outlook, if you just go to the inbox and do a right click, it'll give you an opportunity to set up a new folder. And then you can, from a given email, there's an option to set up a rule from the email, and you can just send it to that inbox, to that folder.
I've got one called Bacon, which is good spam. And that was from Productivity Ninja, Graham Olcott. He suggested doing that. So stuff you think, I'd really like to read that, but I can't read it today. I'm not sure I ever will. You just put it into that Bacon box. And interesting, I don't think I've ever really gone back into that. It's all these things that, I'd like to keep. I don't really want to delete that, but I don't want it in my action box. But that is quite useful. So I think there's something that we feel, if we delete stuff, it makes us feel anxious just in case we need it again.
I should come clean and say sometimes I'm really good at my emails and sometimes much less good. This is not, there's no shoulds about this. I think you just need to, as a person, you just need to try it out. So try deleting the stuff, see how it feels. Try not deleting it, see how it feels. And then, take a little bit of time to reflect on how those two processes have gone. It's Oliver Burkeman, I think, who talks a lot about, sort of information just being a river that you just sort of, you sort of dip your cup in. It's a bit like that with emails. Most things, people will get back to you again if it's email. Opportunities tend to come again. It's unlikely. It's like never to be repeated discounts, isn't it? Lo and behold,
it's repeated.
Lo and behold, it's still available the next week. I think there's very few opportunities that don't come around in some way again. And if I think about my life, things I thought, a never to be repeated opportunity. Actually, I was pretty glad I didn't get it because something else good came along. And it's easy to say than it is to do, but I think people can afford to be a bit more relaxed than they are about the emails they're receiving and whether the opportunities will come again. It generally they do. And, most people are, if you miss an email, most people are quite nice about it.
And what about this feeling that we're rude if we're ghosting somebody? Because the problem with email is anybody, if they have your email address, could send you a message. And there's something about someone sending you a message, it's sitting in your inbox, particularly if it's a personal message, saying, could we have a chat or a coffee or something like that? They could have, it might be someone you have never seen before, you've never heard of. There's no particular reason for it. It's their agenda. They want to, but you feel really guilty for saying no. And then you can feel really resentful that person has made you feel guilty that you've got to say no to them because you don't want to ghost them because that feels rude. So then almost the problem becomes your problem.
Oh gosh, there's wheels within wheels there, isn't there, Rachel? The psychiatrist to me is fascinated.
What are you going to diagnose?
Fascinated. I don't think we're responsible. Okay, so I don't think we're responsible for what other people feel. That would be my one line response to that. And I don't know how that sits with people. But I think that we have a responsibility to be our best selves and to, conduct ourselves, in a professional way, in a way that sort of is in line with our values. And hopefully those, I do think, it's important that those values respect other people. However, I think once we have conducted ourselves in that way, then we can sit back and say, I've done my best. And you're not responsible for how other people feel about what you've done. And I think, unfortunately, wouldn't it be lovely if we had time to reply to every email? We can't. I suppose one thing you could do is, I don't know what you say on your emails, but certainly I'm on very few email things, but Oliver Bertman I am on, and he says, I love getting emails. I do read them all, but I don't have time to reply to them all. So yeah, I think unfortunately that, I guess that's just, with the convenience of email comes these downsides, and that's something people need to get alongside and somehow be comfortable with.
Why is it, though, that with email we feel more beholden to reply and to answer and to do it than if, say if a patient just came up to you on the street and asked you for some advice, you'd be like, well, this is really inappropriate, I'm not going to give it. Whereas that same patient, if they got your email address, could email you in and suddenly be like, I have a responsibility now because I have this message in my inbox. Do you think we do have a responsibility or not?
Well, I suppose it's case by case, isn't it? But I think probably I would. It is easier if you can have an email which is more difficult to guess. And so people do need to think carefully about putting their emails out in the public domain if they don't think they're going to have time to reply. So I suppose it's about personality factors and thinking ahead about how the best use to use your time is. Because ultimately, the time you spent replying to that particular person is time that you can't give to somebody else. So it's very much sort of opportunity cost. I'm not really sure why email people feel so beholden. It sits in front of them every day, doesn't it? You can't really sort of put it aside. There is this sort of sense, again, Cal Newport comes up with things, email makes things just easy enough. It is just about possible to reply to all your emails, isn't it? If all your patients emailed you, it's just about possible to do it.
Because I could, I should.
Because I could, yeah, exactly. Because I could, I should. Cal Newport talks about why productivity is actually, computers are amazing, again, all these things that we can do with computers now, but productivity in the UK has really struggled. And, and as a doctor, my productivity is really not what it should be. And there's a problem with NHS productivity in general, because it is just about possible for me to see all my patients and write up all my letters myself. And that's what I'm asked to do. And so that's what I do. So all this sort of expensive clinician time, expertise is spent writing letters. So I see a patient, it takes me about 40 minutes. And then it probably takes me about the same amount of time to write the letter. And the barrier to entry on email is very, very low as well, isn't it? Anyone can send you an email from anywhere in the world, takes them a second.
And also, I guess because some really important things come to you via email from, people that you do need to reply to, and some of it is mission critical and job critical. But in exactly the same list is sitting that, random request for, for you to send £100,000 off to some country or what, the spam stuff you're trying to avoid. And then people get anxious and worried about things as well. So I think it's that everything lands in exactly the same place and it looks the same.
Yeah. I think there's a few things to tease out there. If you're getting a lot of spam is one of those things that the tech companies have got quite good at preventing. So if you're getting a lot of spam, I would revisit your spam filter. Again, I suppose one of my messages from today is if email's not working for you, it is a difficult thing to manage really, really well. And I'm not holding myself up a paranoid virtue. Sometimes I'm better than others, but it is possible to manage it. And I think that, small wins, can you make your email, can you think about the things that are bothering you about email? Can you make them a little bit better? And, and compound wins, if you make it, I don't know, it'll be difficult to put a number on it, but let's imagine you got your email 5% better. Gosh, over the course of a year, 5% is an awful lot of time that you're not, that you can do something else, or indeed nothing. You could use that time to do nothing.
And it's about really small gains, isn't it? I was, in your article that you wrote, I was very struck by, what was it? You said if somebody in a trust of 10,000 people send out an email that takes everybody 1 minute to sort of read and process, even if it's just to delete it, that takes up how much time was it? Something like 4.5 working weeks or something like that? I
know, it's extraordinary. On an individual level, I think this is right. If you were to waste 9 minutes a day, that's 54 hours a year. So it all really adds up. So I think, I like to think I'm easy to work with, but one of the things I think it makes it slightly difficult to work with me occasionally is that I am always saying to people, with every task you do in your job, can you think, can we do this quicker? And by quicker, it could mean, can we do it like 2 minutes quicker? Because all these things add up. So starting that meeting on time, finishing that meeting on time. And, if you're having a meeting about patients, can we agree that we're going to talk about each patient for 5 minutes rather than 7? It sounds difficult, sounds petty in a way, and it somehow sounds like not cricket, I always feel. But actually, if you can save that time, then these are the things that really make a difference to our jobs going smoothly.
I have read some evidence that actually, if you have a time limited thing, you're actually more efficient, you get more done, and you actually have a better conversation. So I think actually saying, right, we've got a 5-minute conversation about this patient is going to really focus someone's mind than thinking, well, we've got 20 minutes to ramble on about it. So if we go back to email, it strikes me that actually the issue we have around email is one of mindset. And if you can get the mindset right behind the whole thing, then it becomes much easier to deal with. And the blockers that I see in myself is a FOMO, fear of missing. What if I miss out on something really interesting or a good deal or literally just a task that was mission critical? So you've got FOMO, you've got the fear of being rude or upsetting someone or ghosting someone or not pleasing someone by not doing that task that they wanted me to do, even if I didn't agree to do it in the first place. That's one thing I think doctors in particular are very bad at, that if the task lands in their inbox or even as a patient note or something like that, because you've been asked to do it, we suddenly take it on. Like it is our task because someone's asked us, rather than thinking, well, is this my task or not? We find it very difficult to go, well, this actually isn't mine to take. So that says FOMO. Is this task mine to take on? There's saying no. There's a bit of a fear as well. I hear, when people are on annual leave, their biggest thing about coming back to work is opening up their inbox, this fear of what might be in there.
Yeah, I went to a talk by a psychoanalyst once who described her having her job and how hard she found it. And she said that she thought email was like a crying baby in the corner of the room, which I beautiful, but also, distressing. And I don't doubt that was the case. I mean, it can feel like that. And I think that was what my colleagues were like when they talked about email. I used to it's not even a joke. I used to say, in our meetings, someone used to say, I've sent an email about it. And I'd be like, well, that means you haven't done anything, doesn't it?
You're right. I've sent an email, which means that I have taken the responsibility off me. I've taken the naughty monkey off me and I've stuck it in an email and I've sent it to you.
Which can be the right thing to do, but also it can be quite stressful for the other person.
Yes, because you haven't accepted that naughty monkey. So there's all these naughty monkeys that you don't know about that are sat in your email inbox that someone else has given to you or think they're given to you. And I think that the main problem for me, Stephen, is that to give that naughty monkey back feels a little bit like a conflict situation. To say, actually, this isn't mine to take. Can I just give you back this task? I'm not going to do it. Yeah, that takes a lot of emotional work.
Yeah, and look, and again, I'm not here to say these things are easy. Can you try it out? So, so when can you try these things out? You're not committing yourself to a life of being nasty to people if you send one email back and say, like, I'm really sorry, but I don't think this is my job. Also, you could try not replying to an email for a bit and see what happens. I'm going to give a trick of the trade away here. And I do say this to everyone, right? Okay, schedule send emails. It'll change your life. Most email packages allow you to reply to an email, but have it sent the next day. Okay, so you can write the email and you can send it. I don't know if I've sent you 1 or 2 emails, Rachel. You probably didn't notice they all come at 8 in the morning. You send it, schedule send the next day. So the advantage of that, right, is that you often, I think, oh no, I left that bit out. So you can return to the email. So you have an opportunity to edit it, but also it pushes the work to the next day. And by that stage, it might not even matter anymore. You can delete the email or someone else may have picked it up. And also, you're not giving people the idea that you're there just sitting on the end of the email, just replying, and they can email you and they can get the answer immediately. They're getting a sense that actually it's going to wait. So what it allows you to do is it's very hard when you get an email, especially if you sit in front of it, it's very hard not to reply to it. I think that's a universal problem, right? But the problem is you're trying to finish the day's work. You reply to it, you get the message, you reply to it, they reply back, the day's work's not done. If you reply to the email but have it sent the next day, the day's work is done and you've moved it to the next day.
I love that. I'd never thought of it like that. I have a delay sends on my email so I can go back and edit when I think, oh no, I should have put that in or whatever. But I'd not thought about that because that's what people want to do. They want to sort of get to the bottom of their to-do list. Although, side note, I don't think we ever do get to the bottom of our to-do list. But we like to feel that we've done our work. But you're right. I heard a statistic that every email generates an extra 1.7 emails. So it's sort of ever expanding, this email thing. So yeah, as soon as you reply, you are creating more work for yourself, even if it feels like the task is done. So delaying it till the next day is genius.
I mean, I suppose as well, you're trying to be the change, aren't you? So you're not going to be able to sit down with a team as a doctor and say, look, guys, you've got to change the way you're doing your email. I have seen the light. That's not going to happen. But can you demonstrate by your own behavior how best to use email? So for instance, I often send emails to people and I say, please do this task. And then I say, there is no need to CC me into further emails about this. And then people don't, because there's a lot of people feel, I think, a bit anxious about the tasks they're asked to do, and they want you to know about it as a senior doctor. I mean, I get that, but also you need to be able to say, I am delegating this task to you. I trust you to do this task. You do not need to keep me constantly informed about it. It's about, because email, there is no barrier. Again, let's imagine email didn't exist and you ask someone to do something. They're not going to knock on your door every 5 minutes. I've sharpened the pencil now. I put a bit of paper in the parcel. They're not going to do that, but an email actually literally allows you to do that. And so you've got to sort of teach people that actually it's not, I am delegating this to you and you don't need to tell me about it. And also, if you can think about how you're composing your email, the task has come to you. Can you, with that email, send the task back to someone saying, please do these steps? And can you be as prescriptive as possible and say, if this doesn't work, do this. If this doesn't work, do this. I'm now handing this over to you. Come back. Feel free to come back to me. But, I don't need to be kept abreast of this in fine detail. So again, it's about sort of thinking ahead. How can I use this to my best advantage rather than being sort of stuck in this cycle of constantly being updated by email and stuck in the minutiae when you want to be thinking about tasks.
Yes, I think people CC people, don't they, just to show that they're doing it, and then they forget to take them off CC. How do you know, though, that somebody has accepted the task that you've sent them if you've been taken off the CC?
Well, I think it's about having trust in your team, isn't it? Well, I suppose it's about having a good workflow, which is then outside the email. One of the other points in the article is don't try to use email for everything. So it's a message. It's an indiscriminate message system, asynchronous, indiscriminate message system where everything comes into the same inbox. It's not a to-do list, a calendar, a read later list. It's just messages coming in. And if you're using it for those other things, you need to, then you need to think about your digital fluency and whether you can be using other apps that do it better.
Yeah, I totally agree. Don't use email as your to-do list. And I'm just thinking what you were saying about, giving a task to a colleague. If you're really worried about making sure they've actually received it or whatever, then you could have a conversation with the team saying, when I send you that task, just send me an email about going, got it, thanks. And then once you know they've got it, then you don't need to be CC'd on anything else and take you off, and be very explicit about that. I do when I'm putting people in contact with each other. I say, please take me off, no need to CC me into any of your emails. You guys go for it. I don't need to be copied into any future correspondence between you and things like that. And that just gives people permission, doesn't it? Not to do that. But I think sometimes people are just unclear and they don't know what you want and what you don't want. So again, it's being open and honest.
Yeah. So they don't need to feel polite. I think as you often say in your podcast, I mean, clarity is kindness, isn't it? So if you clear is kind, yeah. So if you can just say to people, you don't need to. I've done my bit here. I'm gonna, and I think you can be honest and say, I haven't got time to continue to be in this. I hope that sounds okay. And people are normally fine with these things. People are so wrapped up. I mean, people are so wrapped up in their own lives that they don't care.
I think one of the problems that I've certainly had is you want to be polite on email, and then so when someone sends you something, you don't need to reply, but you feel it's rude not to reply. So you end up going, "Oh, thanks so much, that's great, brilliant," and then have a nice day, and then they reply going, "You too," and it's just like, oh. So me and my colleagues, we started to put NNTR at the end of a message, no need to reply. It's just like, here's some information, no need to reply, and that's been quite helpful. So we know that no one is going to think you're rude if you're not replying. But emails are bad for tone of voice, aren't they? Communicating anything more emotional. What advice would you have for people that are in this sort of a conversation via email, that they need to convey something a little more complex than just sort of information? Would you still keep on email, or would you do something different?
Well, I suppose you could always call them, couldn't you? I think people got a little bit better. I mean, the emoji, the grinning face emoji, to show. I mean, I like liberal use of exclamation marks and the grinning face emoji. And again, schedule send. If you start to worry that your tone is wrong, then you can always return to it if you do a schedule send. Whereas if you send it off in the heat of the moment, I have got in trouble in my life being cross and tired at the end of the day and sending a cross and tired email, and then it's taken me some days and a bit of groveling to unwind. And so you've just got to be, I mean, it's about managing yourself and understanding what you like as a person. And part of that is about, being able to sort of access your own mental states, which, it's It sounds like it's easy, but noticing that you're tired and emotional and getting sent across email is not something that comes easily to us. It's not something they teach at medical school, for instance. And you have to learn it the hard way. But emojis, which are available on all computers, are quite good for that. And like I say, you can always say something like, do you know what? I'm really worried about how this is coming across. In the email, you can say that. I'm really worried about how that's coming across. And if this is sitting right with you, let's arrange to talk about it. I mean, just acknowledge the difficulty of the email.
Just very quickly, how do you do schedule send?
If we're talking about Microsoft packages, there's the desktop app and then there's the browser-based version. So most people with NHS Mail will have the option between the two, and it's different between doing the two. But essentially, normally near the send button, there's a little drop-down box, and it allows you to schedule send it. I'm more than happy to do a little video to show how that's done.
Well, we'll tell you what, if people want little videos on these things, let us know. Email, I'll say more emails, but this is totally fine. Email hello@youandafrog.com to ask for a video. And by the way, just so I know, I do absolutely love hearing from listeners, because when you're doing something like a podcast, you don't see people face to face. And the only way I've got from hearing from people is to email. So please don't think you shouldn't be emailing us in. But Stephen, I just want to go on to talk about this to-do list. Email us a to-do list, because I think most of us are guilty of doing that, even if we have other to-do lists. And we've worked very hard in our organisation to get tasks off email. And so now we use a project management system so we can communicate via that. And it has honestly been a game changer. So very few tasks from my team come to me via email. They all come through. We use Asana. How does that work in healthcare? Because lots of people say, oh, we can't use other project management systems, we can't use other things. People are very worried about, obviously, data protection. And when it comes to patients, obviously, tasks need to be kept in a very secure environment. But what would your advice be about how to marry emails up with a to-do list, so your to-do list isn't sitting in your inbox?
Well, we're not in it. I mean, the packages we're using for email are not in our zone of power. So we just have, I mean, to a degree, you run a relatively, compared to the NHS, a modest organisation. So you have the ability to say, actually, email's not working. So I suppose what you're doing with Asana is you're having a number of projects, and then the messages are connected to those projects rather than all coming into the same place. You can come to work in the morning and you can go to Asana and you can say, these are the jobs and I'm going to work on that one. So you are dictating your day schedule from that point of view. You're not coming to your inbox and thinking, and that's dictating your day schedule. In healthcare, no doubt there are some enlightened places out there, but everywhere I've worked, the note system doesn't support that sort of thing. Because I mean, in a way, each patient is a separate project, and the emails, we could have messages attached to each patient. So every clinical episode is a project. Our note systems don't really allow us to do that. They're essentially based on paper notes, and everything is being sort of piled on top. They don't really support productivity. And then email, of course, sits on top of that as well. None of the two of them sit together. We have to take, it's not like in my case, I doubt it's anywhere. It's not like if you send an email about a patient, it automatically attaches itself to their notes. You have to do it separately. We've got to now to the situation. I mean, I'm old enough to remember paper notes, which were a pain. And again, let's not forget how great electronic notes are. Isn't it amazing that you just go into a computer and there the notes are, rather than having to call it up and someone rushes over with a falling apart packet of notes that you have to sort of try and put together. But it did mean that you could go straight to the doctor's bit. And that's the bit I'm interested in. Whereas now I often have to wade through multiple notes about how many sandwiches the person had that day to get to the bit that's really important. Anyway, it's sort of about trying to be intentional about your work. If you decide that, this is something needs to be done about it, what can you change as an individual? And you can probably start to, rather than checking your emails, you can start to process your emails. And then, which is what my article talks about, you get an email. What is the task from this email? And then from that point on, you then move the email into a separate folder and make a note. So let's imagine it was something like, Stephen, can you fill in this prescription? I read the email. I either do it on the spot. So this is very sort of Dave Allen stuff. Can I do it on the spot? Or do I put it as a to-do list? So what I might do is someone gets an email. Can you, let's call the patient Dave Smith. Can you write an FP10 for Dave Smith? Okay. Can I do it now? No. I'll put the job on my to-do list, and then I'll put it in the Dave Smith folder. And then it's not sitting in my inbox anymore.
But I think the key thing is noticing what the email is. Is it just for your information only, or does it have a task in it? If it's got a task in it, you process that task either, like you said, by doing it or putting it on your to-do list somewhere. If people are interested in this, we had a really good interview with Graham Olcott, the productivity ninja, who talks very nicely about having a second brain. So just your to-do list is basically your second brain. And I think he thinks that basically it doesn't matter how you do it, as long as it's consistent. I think that's the thing, because it's really, really stress inducing when you've got multiple tasks, but in different places. You've got some in an email, some on Todoist, some on some paper, some over here. Whereas if you just know that there's one place where you have kept the bulk of it. Now, actually, I have a paper thing, and I also have Asana. And between those two, that seems to work pretty well. But that's when I get really stressed, is when I don't quite know where my tasks are and what I need to do.
So he talks about having tried to reduce the number of channels of information coming into you. So, and again, this is about, I suppose, making a decision yourself, what works for you, being okay with occasionally other people feeling it or being a bit awkward, and then sticking to it. So if you've got a place where you're getting, if you're, as it were, your bigger inbox, your jobs in inboxes, WhatsApp messages, emails, letters, phone calls, then that's just going to make your life more difficult. So probably, do you need people to contact you on WhatsApp as well as email? So I actually like email. So I discourage people from WhatsApping me about stuff, because then you've got two things to keep on top of. So can you have one channel where these jobs come in, and can you then sort of like be quite focused on how you manage the tasks that are coming in that way?
How many times do you check your email every day?
Loads.
How many times do you think you should check your email? Yeah.
Loads. If I've got something really important to do, so there is, I forget where I read it, but if you come in and you check your email, you're coming into work and it's like you're doing someone else's to-do list, not your own. So I would probably, look, think about my day. I would probably come in and just briefly check the email during the day. Unfortunately, I don't get as many emails as I used to, and I think that is because I have trained people not to. I don't get that many. I'm not on any. I'm not on any marketing lists. I've got various rules set up to move away the emails which I don't consider to be particularly important, and people don't CC me that much. So I don't find that I'm absolutely overwhelmed with emails. So I do check it very briefly first thing in the morning, and then I would try to avoid and sort of check it a little bit around lunchtime, process it a little bit around lunchtime, and then in the afternoon. I have found that with the process I've got set up with email, that it no longer overwhelms me like it used to. But I think if people, the article sort of sets out a way of thinking about this, sort of the as it were, the email hygiene initially, and then a way to continue with it, which is more sustainable. So I think if I was an absolute sort of guru and sort of lying about what I do, I would say, well, Rachel, I get up in the morning, and after I finished my, yoga and
your deep work time.
After I finished yoga and journaling, then I don't check my email for the first, I start work at 9, after putting my face in a bowl of cold water for 10 seconds, I then don't check my email for 2 hours because I've already decided the day before what tasks I'm going to do. Then I check my emails I process my emails for 30 minutes at 11 o'clock. And then I would process them again at sort of 3 p.m. for 45 minutes, and then I'm done. So I think that's what the guru would say. None of us are really like that. So I think it's a constant work in progress. But if you have things that you need to do, don't check your email first. Especially, and it's like, know thyself. If you've read the articles, you've read the books, you've listened to the podcast, but you still find it difficult, just know what you're like and just think, well, do you know what? Email's always going to be difficult for me, but can I make it a bit better? I know that if I check my email first thing in the morning, then that's it, down a rabbit hole for the next 2 hours. I think one of Graham Alcott's great insights is about you're managing attention. So if you really need to get something done, your best time to do it is between, 8:30 and 11 in the morning, isn't it? Don't spend that time, spending, on the phone to IT or the emails about your printer or something. Spend it doing the work time. Okay. And you do need to find time. Bill Gates and Warren Buffett like to say, busy is the new stupid, which is my current phrase that I like. I wheelhouse it to annoy people, but they're right. If you're really, really busy all the time, you will not find the time to think about stuff that you need to change. And if you spend your time always doing the urgent stuff, you never get the time to plan. And if you spend your time doing the stuff that it's important but not urgent, then actually the urgent stuff will reduce because you've already sorted it out.
And so what you're talking about, Stephen, is deep work. And Cal Newport, who wrote the book, that email, wrote this amazing book, Deep Work. And I think in medicine, we hardly get any time for deep work, or we hardly give ourselves any time for deep work. And that has been the biggest game changer for me. It's not checking my email, it's working on the important projects, doing the deep work first thing in the morning when I can. And obviously the caveat that we know people have clinics and they're in surgery and they've got ward rounds and stuff. But when you can, do your deep work first. And that was absolute gem what you said. You might have planned the night before. You sit down, you look, what have I got tomorrow? How am I going to schedule my day? What are the 3 things I need to get done? And when am I going to do those? And if possible, you can just sit down and start off on that deep project that you wanted to do that is in your not urgent but important box. But if you check your email, you just get sucked into, like you said, everybody else's tasks. And the other mistake I see people making is, and I do this all the time, you check your email in between other things, or I used to check it in between patients when, why on earth did I do that? Because I was already running late. So, if you check your emails and something really important's there that you get distracted by, but you haven't got time to deal with it or answer it because you're in the middle of a surgery. So we're constantly checking our emails and getting the stress of some of the tasks that are coming in the emails, but we can't process it at that point. So we're adding to the task and we're adding basically to the cognitive load all day. So I think only checking emails when you actually have a chance to process them, to be able to put them on a to-do list or actually action some of the things makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think so. Again, to mildly challenge you, Rachel, I think you've talked a lot about urgent stuff coming through emails, and certainly that's possible. My experience is it's 99% not urgent emails, if not more. And if someone's sending you something really urgent, life or death, on an email, I think the organisation.
There's a system issue there, right?
They probably need to think about where what that's all about, because there should be potentially. Obviously there's lots of different ways of doing things, but potentially there should be a duty person sitting in front of that email inbox and looking at it, rather than sending it to someone who may or may not read it that day. So I think that's about managing the workflow there. That's just, like you say, a system issue. So if that is a problem, bring it up at the next business meeting and say, I'm getting these emails that seem to be really important, but I can't undertake to answer them.
I think that's a really concrete action step that our listeners could take, that if you're checking your emails all the time because you are really worried that something urgent is going to be in there, then what is the step that you need to take to make sure your team and everyone else know that is absolutely the wrong way to contact you in an emergency? Phone, text message. My family know they need to text me if there's a problem, because that's the one thing that pings on my phone. Nothing else does.
Absolutely. So, and then it goes to the problem with email, which is that you're getting in stuff about, milk's on a discount at Tesco this week. Plus the fact that, so-and-so, this really, this urgent thing is going to happen. It's about you do have the ability to, I guess, through an example or through your concrete actions, to train people not to do that, or to think, can there be a better way of doing this? We are working with colleagues who really feel, and if people to email and say that you just don't get it, and I maybe I don't get people's workplaces, but it is general normally you can change things a little bit, and from little changes can come quite big changes in culture. So we've got to start somewhere.
And Stephen, can I just ask you, because people can get very obsessed with getting the inbox to zero and end up spending more time managing their emails and filing emails than they do actually doing the work. And I've sort of got over that by just having one archive folder, that anything that I've read but I want to keep just goes into archive. So then I can search it, and that works really, really well for me. But when I've spoken to doctors, they are concerned about what to do with the patient-related emails versus the general job-related emails. So you, as a practicing clinician, how do you deal with the patient stuff coming into the same inbox as everything else? Do you have a specific system for the patient emails?
Yeah, so just to talk about Inbox Zero for a bit, the guy who originally came up with Inbox Zero has since withdrawn, sort of made a retreat from it. I think it is difficult to do that. But just so your listeners know, the idea is that you don't have anything, an email comes into your inbox, you deal with it in various ways. And if you look at my article, there's a flowchart about what to do. You deal with it in various ways until you have nothing in your inbox. And that can become the criticism of that just becomes another thing to beat yourself up about. Oh no, I'm not inbox zero. Again, you need to be compassionate to yourself. And these are all sort of, they're ideals. It's not a bad idea, but if you don't manage it, don't worry about it too much. In terms of what I do as a clinician, there is no right way to organize your folders with your emails. You need to be able to, really the right way to do it is to allow you to find the emails that you need to find reasonably quickly. So I personally don't find that the search function works well enough to allow me to find what I need, because it might, some people don't put patient names on emails and they just put numbers. Other people, sometimes I have to remember who sent me the email, all that sort of thing. So actually every single patient gets their own folder, which is a little bit unwieldy. I mean, I've got about 150 folders to the left-hand side of my screen, but it does mean whenever I need to find out about a patient, especially if it's someone that I haven't thought about for quite some time, then all the relevant emails are in the folder to the left-hand side of my screen. So that's what I do.
So it sounds like you separate anything that's sort of clinical about patients goes into a very specific separate folder. It doesn't just sit with a melee of everything else.
Yes, everyone gets their own, every single patient gets their own folder. I don't think that would work for a GP.
Possibly not for a GP, but they could have a clinical folder that they put everything about patient. It's easier to search that clinical folder than it is to search an entire archive of every single inbox you've got, email you've got from, like you said, Tesco's and us and everything else.
And I've got about 200 patients assigned to me. So it's, again, just about possible to do that. That works for me. It doesn't necessarily work for everybody.
But you'll find your own folders, and that's exactly what I've done. I found the folders that I need. Most stuff goes into archive. I've got a folder for finance I can find quickly. There's a confirmation safe place thing. So if there's a ticket or something I need to know or a Zoom link I need quickly, I can go into that one. And I've actually got 2 action folders. I've got urgent action for today. So that's the one I know needs to be totally cleared. And there's an action folder as well. Most of those actions have gone on to Asana, but that's just for stuff that I know I need to just keep an eye on.
Yeah, so so in terms of the more mundane stuff, I've got the inbox, an action folder and a waiting reply folder. And then I have a sort of general archive folder as well. So that would be my sort of home stuff. I think you could argue that my action folder is a bit like a to-do list, and I think guilty as charged. I mean, you can't, it's really hard to keep the two separate, but there is, because some jobs are sufficiently small that they don't quite fit in a to-do list, but it's a work in progress, isn't it?
And also, if the action is on an email and the action is a reply that needs doing, it feels like duplicating work to go, right, I need to put on Asana that I need to email back that person when it could just go into my email them back folder type
Exactly. So, I went through a stage of thinking I wouldn't sort of read my emails at all in the morning. And then I actually realized that actually a lot of my work was replying to emails. So that didn't really work.
The message I'm getting from you, Stephen, is sort of good enough and done is better than trying to go for a perfect system and failing.
Yeah, so I around the time that I started listening to your podcast, actually, Rachel, I started listening to sort of productivity gurus on YouTube, and I thought, this is amazing. These guys, they're learning piano, they're learning Spanish, and that's just before 11 in the morning. And then I tried to do it, and I just thought, this is just not possible. And then I realized, actually, that I think they're sort of selling a dream rather than something they can actually do themselves. And then I just came to the idea that actually it's more about just, can you get your life a bit organized, but can you also forgive yourself if you can't quite manage to be perfect?
That's the stuff. That's just productivity porn, isn't it? The fact that I've got nothing left on my to-do list. It's never going to happen for me. It's all about, how do I feel? Do I feel that I know what's on my to-do list? Do I feel that all my tasks are in places that I know that they are? Do I know what's on my plate? Because if you know what's on your plate, you can deal with it. That when I talk to people in healthcare who are really overwhelmed, and I know when I felt overwhelmed myself, it's when I haven't really known exactly what I've known. There's a lot on my plate, but I haven't just detailed it out. And sometimes just getting it down is enough to stop the overwhelm, because then you can have a plan about, well, what am I going to do? What am I going to delegate? What am I going to drop? But listen, Stephen, we ask this to everybody, is, what would be your top 3 tips for someone who's just feeling like they're drowning in email and it just feels like one of their main issues at work?
When it comes to email, I think, my overall message is organization sets you free. I don't know this. I still sort of get this sort of, maybe it's just me, but I just have this sense of somehow, it's not quite, it's not quite playing the game if you're really organized. But actually, if you're organized and you try to align yourself with that, you will make time and it will make your lives easier. And that will allow you to do other things, or indeed nothing at all. With email, I think my tip is that you are more in control of it than you think. And that if you spend a little bit of time thinking about, can I do this better, you'll be able to make small gains. My third tip, I think it's just be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself and others. Like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures, be excellent to each other. But what I'm trying to say is this is really difficult. I think we're not taught about, we don't get training about it. Often our colleagues don't support us in it. And not nastily, but they're struggling as well. You need to be kind to yourself and again, to concentrate on small wins, rather than the sense that you need to the only thing that counts is a complete reorganization.
Thank you. Those are truly excellent tips. As you were saying that the organisation sets you free, my mind immediately went to, oh yeah, but some of us find it very difficult to get organised, Stephen, particularly those of us who have ADHD. But then I thought, actually, I totally agree with you, because actually, if you have difficulty with executive functioning, like ADHD, like I have, like many, many doctors have and other people in healthcare, organisation is even more important for you. And there are lots of really good project managers who have ADHD. And the reason they're good project managers is because they know that organisation doesn't come naturally to them. So they have to have a system. So I think when you do have something like ADHD, having a system like this becomes much, much more important and then lets you operate well in the world. And that's what I found. I used to think I was a very organised person until my admin team said, no, Rachel, you're really not. But it was because I had so many lists and systems, because it didn't come easily to you. And honestly, putting these things in place for myself has really, really set me free. So don't think just because you're neurodivergent, it doesn't mean you can't do this. Actually, you need to do this even more. I think I let things get on top of me because I hadn't found the systems that worked. And actually, I've seen getting the systems that work as part of the work. Getting yourself organised, working out how you manage information is actually part of your role.
Yeah, so you can. There's no shame in going up to someone and saying, "Hey, you seem to be organised, and you always seem to go home on time. What's that about? How are you managing that?" And then you can listen and you can think, "Oh, that's rubbish," and not do it. Or you can think, "Oh, do you know what? Or listen to this podcast. You know that Stephen Gin bloke. It wasn't all gold, but I like that idea. That's what it is."
Well, I've got a whole page of notes here that I'm going to be doing.
A constant process of iterative improvements.
The other thing I've taken away from my chat is just because it's in your inbox doesn't mean it's yours. You have a choice and you have the control. And I think that's a mindset shift we all need to have about anything. Just because someone's asked you to do it doesn't mean you have to do it. But also think about actually communicating with your team about the rules around how you do emails as a team. What are the expectations? Because if you know that there's not an expectation to reply immediately and you won't be replying immediately, you'll be replying next day, I'm definitely going to try that sending at 8 a.m. the next day, then everyone feels permission to do that and it helps everybody.
There should be an electric shock connected to anyone who does reply all as well. That'd certainly
be motivating, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And the other thing is my dream would be, and I'm nowhere near doing this, is that because what happens is people, certainly in senior positions, tend to get a lot of emails they need to pass on. Now, ideally, they would collect them all and send them one email a week, but they just send them out every time. So you can, as a team, if it's ever possible, as a team, think, well, what's this working for us? I have to say that we, in my workplace, we don't sit around and dutifully talk about our email culture. But I think it's because it's not too bad where I am. But I think, again, it's about taking power. Can you think about how it might be done better? And you can just ask, can't you? You can say, I've got this problem. Can anyone help? And what's the worst thing that's going to happen? No one's going to take any notice of you. Is that so bad?
But why don't we just stick it in as an AOB at the end of the meeting? Right. Anyone got any good tips for how we're doing our emails right now or how we're communicating? One thing I did want to mention is that I have about 40 or 50 different signatures to just save me saying the same thing over and over again. And those signatures are quite good to be able to put some say no stuff to as well. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you want to give that task back or not take it on.
I don't do that. That sounds like a brilliant idea, but I don't do that for no reason other than I haven't quite got round to it. No, I do have sort of form emails. I use Notion a lot, which is a note-taking app.
So do you cut and paste from Notion into your emails a lot?
Cut and paste from Notion. I mean, obviously I do it differently to you, so I don't have a lot of unsolicited emails, and I guess you probably get quite a few.
Well, I guess it's about standard replies. I think a lot of people are just writing the same reply over and over again. How can you get a system where you're just giving, if it's the same reply you're giving to people, just even to my team, actually, because I love getting emails, from people outside my team. I like getting emails from my team, but I do have standard replies. I even use to my team, which is great, please schedule, or great, please do this.
Some people are using AI to reply to emails these days. I haven't quite got that far. That's a whole different discussion, but I haven't quite got that far. So it's about, it's what you're talking about is what the productivity gurus call, isn't it? Reducing variation.
Oh, Stephen, thank you so much. It's been so good having you on. Really loads and loads of gold in there, lots of little tips and things. What we'll do is we will post a link to your article. Have a look at that article. I really, really recommend it. It's a quick read, but there's so much in that article as well. And it's something that we moan about a lot, but we don't take control of and actually do anything about. And we spend so much time looking at emails and processing emails. And I think for me, I'm going to take that away. Rather than checking emails, I'm going to think of myself as I'm just going to process some emails. That's a bit of a mindset shift as well.
It's a task. It's a task like any other, which you need to give. We haven't talked about it now, but you need to give it time. The idea that you're just going to do it amongst other things is, you've got to give it time.
So thank you for coming on. We'll put the link in there, and there's contact details for you in that article as well. And once you've worked out more tips on how to do this, will you come back and share them with us?
It'd be a great pleasure, Rachel. Thank you for having me on this time.